Hello, my fellow gaming tankers. I, Momentary Genius, come before you to ask for forgiveness. Not like that weird mobile ab game that was on YouTube like last year. Just forgive us for being late or something. Anyway, well, I have to ask forgiveness because if, for all of like a blip of a moment last week, you may have seen that I posted a video. A video that was doing really well. Unfortunately, as one of my more regular viewers pointed out in comments, yeah, the Pharaoh's Fury isn't actually eligible to be earned, and I really was just blinded by my hopes and dreams of you, the player who doesn't have the Pharaoh's Fury, of getting the Pharaoh's Fury because it's a good all-year tank. It is based on the Ramses II tank, which is an Egyptian T-55 upgraded tank. So it is a tank you could play all year round as long as you can, handle 5 degrees of gun depression. It's not a gimmick tank like the Munsterjäger or the Arcane Cannon. It is a tank with 200 millimeters of upper plate and lower plate armor. And I have mine up to 72 kilometers per hour. Alright? Accuracy isn't the best, but you can still use it. It's a usable tank. All year. You can rely on it. All year. But that was just... I apologize for being foolish, ignorant, and not doing my due diligence as a supposed content creator. I apologize for that. So that was... I didn't technically take it down. I privated it. Maybe next year I'll be able to release it again. Because the Pharaoh's Fury is a good tank. Sadly, I don't have the Ramses II, so I can't talk about that. But I'm pretty sure it's very similar. It is the tank that the Pharaoh's Fury is based on. Now, on to why we're looking at Tehran 6, T62, and T64 today. And why did this take me so long to get out? Because I've been talking about it a little bit in streams and stuff. Well, I had started in earnest after, of course, fully upgrading the T64 of experimenting with a very unique notion, because prior to the last major update, these tanks all could have a concealment rating in the low 200s. Like 250, I think I had like 230. So I was working on stealth builds, and the T64 was one that I was really happy about because it has advantages over the T62 and Tehran 6 that made it like I had an opportunity to make a tank that really shouldn't exist. So I was working on stealth builds. Well, the T62 and Tehran 6, obviously I was going for stealth builds because they don't have the versatility the T64 did. And I was having a lot of fun playing around with that, working on really honing that in so I could present to you stealth tanks, which is the best. Then the update came. And concealment, view range, reload, a whole bunch of stuff was changed, and suddenly, okay, Cold War tanks felt, especially these Cold War medium tanks, felt more like World War II medium tanks where you really couldn't get the concealment down. The stacking concealment with the net and smoke, gone. So I had to... It really messed up my plans for the T62 and Tehran 6. Because these tanks are... they're a little more bare bones. They don't have as many unique and improving features as the T64. So I'm trying not to spoil it here, but of which 150 millimeter tank is better. So it was also a great stealth build, and all 115 millimeters. Like, okay, great. Medium tanks with high alpha. Awesome. So what's the differences? What are the similarities? Well, so I guess we'll start with the main feature, the 115 millimeter boom snout. Now you're probably already said, for more experienced players, like the Turan 6 and the T62 are the same tank. Because after one of the several conflicts Israel experienced in the 70s, they just happened to find a few T-62s laying around the battlefield and were like, you know what, with a little spit and polish here, we can add these to our inventory, and that's what they did. So when it comes to the T-64 and Turan 6, I'm kind of sort of talking about the exact same thing, because their only real differences comes in the form of heat pen and HE alpha damage. Sort of like, okay, the heat on the T-62 is 440, heat on Turan 6 is 510, and HE's 135, although the heat and the HE on the Turan 6 does higher alpha damage. Whether or not you use those, I don't know. Although the Israelis did tweak the, well, at least for the game where the Israelis did, I'm pretty sure they probably would have fine-tuned the accuracy of the 115 millimeter boom snout. So the Turan 6 is probably, in my opinion, although the stat shows it's got a .33 accuracy, and I don't have a huge amount of accuracy buffs on these tanks, because the 115 when you've aimed in is okay. The Turan 6 does derp the least, I should say. So yeah, you have accuracy, and the standard rounds, you're pretty much, the Turan 6 has the worst by only having 426 millimeters of penetration, while the other two are 427. So the Turan 6 is lacking 1 millimeter of penetration over its counterparts. Or, yeah, the minor differences Wargaming Chicago Division did to make some sort of differences, kind of. Right. So if you're wanting something, the 115s really are like, they really are in between the 105 and like 120, maybe 120. I don't know if I want to go as high as a 125, but they certainly have that alpha of like a 120 to 125. So I think I don't necessarily want to compare it to a 125 because that's a really big, much bigger caliber. But you know what? 10 millimeters different. It's slotted perfectly. If you feel like the alphas of 105s aren't enough, and because it's not a full-blown 125, there is some accuracy to all these. So, you know, if a T-72 and a T-80 are annoying you for their derpiness, I guess you have an option in the T-64 at least, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, there's the strengths. T-64 definitely has this. It's the derpier of the three. It really is. But it's forgivable, and that's because armor is the big difference between these two. Well, one versus the other two. See, while the T-62 / Turan 6 have 100 millimeters upper and lower plate armor rating, that's kind of sucky. The T-64 has a unique upper plate because it has 130 millimeters of layered armor. So there's composite armor there that is usable. Where the best way to put the T-62 armor is, if you've played any of the French mediums, the armor is kind of almost like that in that you don't know when it's going to work. But the French armor will surprise you more, while the T-62, you will learn quickly how far away you really want to be, and what angles don't work. Yeah. Now, its lower plate is 100 millimeters angled, while the T-64 is only 80, but when you're doing stuff getting hull down, and auto aiming tends to keep the enemy aiming up higher above your lower plate. Yeah, that upper plate not being layered composite armor is where the T-62 starts to really make you want to go, I don't want to be near any of the opposing team. You now definitely, this is a poor tank. You gotta hang back. I'm now focused. Like, now it's like the traditional Russian Soviet tanks, like, get the boom snout as accurate as possible. And like a good British, tank is keep the gun firing. Reload times on the Soviet tanks now is, oh, it crawls now. The reloads are, well, it says on the T-64 that it's down to 6.72 seconds. I don't believe that. I probably should have paid attention to what was just happening here, but reloads are a bit long. That's part of the update. And so it's like, well, you have a high alpha boom snout. That means you get the longer reload. That is wargaming tradition. So it does fall onto not so much which 115mm boom snout is the best, because they all kind of feel the same. The Turan 6 definitely feels like it's more reliable and hitting where you're aiming. The other two, T-64 especially, feels to be the derpiest. Like, God. And running and gunning, not so much. Yeah. Update has kind of shifted that. And the T-64 does have the better upper plate armor, but if you're going up against an opponent who knows where to aim, it's like, oh, okay. And maybe you can bounce some ATGMs. Don't get cocky, though. Because you can have confidence, but don't get cocky in the T-64, because this feels like an MBT. This feels, when you go from the Object 430U to the T-64, to being an upgrade. Like, you are definitely feeling this is almost, you feel the Object 430U, great armor, great firepower, and the T-64 is just better. You go from the Object 165 to the T-62 and Turan 6, you kind of go, oh, okay, we've upgraded the boom snout. We've gone from 100mm to 115. Everything else, though, is outdated. But the Soviets had a lot of these things, the T-62s and stuff, so they, mass production. Why have a tougher tank when you can just have a bunch of smaller tanks hitting hard and causing chaos in the battlefield? I guess that was old Cold War military ideas. Now, back to the game. Well, the T-64. I'm still attempting to do a stealth build because it has armor. It has really good mobility. Able to get up to 65 kilometers per hour quickly. And you do have, I've sort of been discovering, like, oh, I don't need T-62s, anything like that. I want to keep back. Side, front, you can get hits from everywhere and be like, dang, I really don't want to be detected. I really don't. I want to stay back, get my, and if I'm not eliminating targets, then the T-62s, oh, now they're back to me like, you got to make a choice first. What do you want to make better? Because you need to make something better because the tank is not the good kind of versatile tank. You know what you need to do depending on how you play. If you're aggressive, I guess get the boom snout as best as possible. If you like to peek-a-boom, run and hide, snipe, I work on concealment, getting down or something, because if stealth is your armor, great. Although the T-62 doesn't really lend itself now to being a stealthy tank until we get bigger maps, maybe. But yeah, it feels like the traditional style of Gotta make the boom snout the best thing about the tank, because it's the only good thing about the tank. T-64, well, its armor does allow you to maybe get a more forward position and do some spotting. Crazy? Yes, I know. But this tank is allowing me to have that kind of crazy notion. If you want to make this one tough SOB of a medium tank, you absolutely can, and it will be a tough SOB of a tank. Oh my god, playing this and then going to like a Leopard 1, it's like, oh, that's a huge transition in style of play. So, yep, you can kind of be, you can be bold, not too bold, okay? You're not a T-72 AV, nothing like that, but as I'm now working on finishing the T-62B, or T-64B, after the T-64, and you get that 125mm boom sound on that one, it's like, yeah, should this be a medium tank? Or should this be a heavy tank? Because you feel more like an MBT, even with the T-64, than you do with any other of the tanks, tech tree tanks. Mediums, I should say. Not just anything. So, yeah, the T-64, I feel it gives you options to play with. So, that's why I will say definitively, it is the better of the T-62 and Turon 6. Because that 115 is attached to a solid platform. The 150mm on the Turon 6 and T-62 are on platforms where you gotta play smart. You've gotta be, dare I say, the best strategy to play those things is to be on the winning team, for starters. They are now relegated to the support role because you don't want to be up front. You want to make sure, if you are engaging the enemy, your team is in front of you, so that way you can use them as meat shields, or at least as a distraction. So, because yeah, the 115mm, doesn't matter which thing, boom snout on any tank, doesn't matter which one, can do well. But if it derps and you hit the tracks, okay, great, you get tracking assist. If it takes a flyer, great, standard, because especially as you also moving now can impact that. So none of these are really running gun tanks, and that's sort of sad. But yeah, if you want a tank that'll allow you to play more freely and not punish you, T-64 is definitely the route to go. Well, I hope you give the tracks and ground and are in your favor, and let me know what you think down below. Goodbye.